I think we'll call the meeting to order. We're waiting for Curtis, who I think is coming. Peter is here. I know that Ann and,
Janet,
who?
not coming, right?
Who?
Janet?
Janet is right there.
What's her name?
McNichol.
Karen,
Karen McNichol is
Yeah.
not coming. Here comes Curtis. So this is
Karen.
pretty much the group. I texted Joan, or I emailed her, and I didn't hear back, so.
My only favor, I don't have a piece of paper. Do you have a piece of paper you can pass around for attendance?
Okay.
Yeah, please. It's never happening. Everyone give it up.
Okay, so I think I'll call the meeting to order if that's okay with you. There's a good chance that we are being taped, but I'm not sure whether we're live or not. So just wanted to let you know that. It's about 7:30, and so time to see what we have to discuss tonight. We can only discuss the things on the agenda. We cannot approve minutes because this is a special meeting, just so you know that. So anyway, we have gotten the answers to the questions and comments that we submitted to the Board of Ed a few weeks ago. And I wonder if you want to discuss them one by one. Do you want to just pick the ones that you think, I mean, some of them, the answers may have been in some of the data that we already got. So do you want to go through them one by one, or do you think that it would be more efficient just to go to the ones that we maybe think we'd like to have a little more information from? Or would you like a minute to read the answers?
Okay, I have. There was one, I'm gonna call it a non-answer, that sort of
Well, there were a
odd
few
thing.
non-answers.
So I ask the same question every year.
Okay.
And last year, Dr. Landon actually gave it to me because he seemed surprised that it was not something we put in there. And that is every year I ask, how many kids are outplaced by grade?
Yep.
And I believe the answer here is, we'll consider giving that.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Where is that question?
To be considered.
To be
The bottom
considered,
on the
yes.
first page. On
What
first
an
page.
understand
Right
why
there
is it
by your
such a
finger on top.
secret?
Right,
It's
on
just
the
not
bottom.
up to
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, you've proved that from
It
looking
is
at other
here.
towns and other schools that everybody has the data except for us.
I think one of the things that's just difficult with this process, and I realize it's the process that we have, but like, we ask these questions, I mean, this would be a lot easier if we were actually having a discussion.
Yes, it
And,
would be.
you know, because again, like, you're synthesizing a bunch of comments here into questions, and sometimes it's like, no offense, but like, no, maybe not exactly what I was thinking if that was the question, and then they respond, you know, there's no opportunity to clarify, to follow up, or whatever else.
But we will, right? There will be inputs.
Well, that
But
will
then
be-
it ends up being a lot of talking to, like, we can make these comments, but a lot of times it's not sometimes they answer, and sometimes it's, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think you have a good point. And in fact, I think that John Cini mentioned this at a meeting a while ago. At one time, before they did the public comment situation at the Board of Ed meetings, they let people comment after each agenda item. And in that case, it was more of a dialogue because you would get kind of the answer, or, you know, it wasn't more of a back and forth. And I don't know if it's a deliberate attempt to stop that. Because they don't feel that they want to make a commitment in a meeting, and they want, because these questions were available about a week before we got them, and the board members said, when the superintendent announced that the answers were ready, board members said something like, oh, we want to see them first.
Yeah.
So I guess I wonder, you know, have they been edited already? But anyway, you make a good point, and maybe that's what we should say. We're interested in more of a dialogue, because the dialogue isn't going to happen until after they make the budget theirs.
Yeah, and especially when a lot of times these are more like almost, I don't want to say the policy things, but it's not strictly like a budget. You know, sometimes it's a clarification, what was this number?
Yes, that's right.
Makes total sense. But
This comes up every year.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I know, and I think
the same
it's a-
conversation.
it's a bad
Format.
format.
Yeah.
It used to be different.
Yes.
It's been, I want to say 3 years ago is when it changed.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it used to be, it was 3, maybe 4
I would say
years
my
ago.
understanding is, and Clara, this may have been the case when you were on the Board of Ed, that it was that dialogue
Yeah.
during meetings. And my understanding is that after the special ed lawsuit, Shipman and Goodwin came in and changed the way the meetings.
That's one of the issues. No one is legally outplaced without some kind of PPT. And so to divulge numbers would be perhaps to give away information.
But it's not identifying, and
But
other
it's
school
not.
districts do it.
Yeah, I think that the other school
I think
districts
they
do
Like
it.
Fairfield School District will go as far as to tell you if it was unilateral, if it was a lawsuit that the parents did, if it was something that the state, like DCF came in and said that it.
I think they provided the pretty good statistics last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well,
would,
so that's why last year I think Westport in their enrollment number gives you like each grade enrollment, including outplaced by grade, and then they give you their total enrollment number because it's truly your total enrollment number.
Well, that's one.
And when I said that, Dr. Landon was like, "Wait a minute, we don't do that," because he was so used to doing it.
It just
and
seems
they,
bizarre,
like gave it to
yeah.
us like that.
and I suppose like maybe the question would be like, I mean, this is obviously coming from someplace. Is it everybody on the board feels this way? 2 people on the board feel this way? I mean,
It's
there's
legal.
Good point.
maybe but
I
like
don't know.
I'm
No,
not
I
in
don't
the
know
in
anymore.
crowd
No,
or
no,
the
I'm not in the
cabal,
in crowd.
as Jay would say.
I'm not in the in crowd either, and I don't know. I don't know any more than you know, except I know some of the process, but I don't know any inside information. So I don't want you to think that.
Yeah.
Okay. We can bring this up again.
I would agree it's legal, most likely, because you run the risk. If you start giving out detailed outplacements, then you start to talk about the schools that are outplaced. Then you can identify which kids. And that's something that
And
nobody wants.
And what their disability is.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I'm just going to disagree. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure if you are, but like I don't think like I'm a cynic maybe, but you can get 2 lawyers and they give you 2 different opinions. So I would be skeptical that it's a legal reason if these other districts are doing it because they're all using the same kind of sort of
And
specialty.
it's just a number. We're not asking
And we
for
got
the
it last
school.
year, so if it
And we
has
got it
legal
last
issue, then
year.
we
Yeah,
shouldn't have
yeah,
received them
yeah,
last
yeah.
year, so.
All it is
we
a number.
Yeah.
All
And
it
I
is.
think what they did last year, right? It also had the table of like the different kinds of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very helpful.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
was, and if Shipman and Goodwin is behind it, they're the attorney for a lot of school districts, so
That's true.
why would they not let us do it?
I mean, it's
don't know.
almost like maybe. Did we ask?
But is that
exactly?
detail beyond the number? Is that detail helpful for us, necessary?
I don't know if
I
any
don't
of this
think
is
so.
necessary.
Well, no, I think a number is necessary.
No, I
because
say
it's in
beyond
budget.
the
Oh, beyond the number,
Do
no.
we need to know breakdowns?
But I don't know if
No.
it's need to know
Does
or
it aid
want
the
to know.
process?
But-
I don't,
But it shouldn't be need to know, right? We should be this whole process is like we're asking the question as part of giving our recommendation to approve it. You may be right that we don't need to know, but the reality is we don't need to know anything. We can just vote yes.
No, that's
That's
not
a
what I
good
meant.
idea.
Does
we
that,
could vote
if,
no too.
Yes,
if the
because
purpose of
they're-
asking the question is determining the total number of students that are in
Yeah,
district
the
and-
outside number, yeah.
and those that are being placed out, that's a different story from finding out the breakdown that you're
That's
suggesting
right.
other schools might do. I would suggest those other schools shouldn't do that.
Well, as someone who I look at the dollars, I want to know a lot of information
Yeah,
on why we're spending those dollars, and because if you don't, I mean, at some point there'll be nothing left in the budget, or our property taxes will be 4 times the level that they are. If you just project out 50 years or whatever number you want to go, like it's an unsustainable rate of growth.
Well, according to the chairman of our Board of Finance, the share of the budget taken up by special education hasn't really budged in a decade, according to him.
Really?
So
I don't think
yeah.
that-
I felt
I
like he
think
said the
that's
exact
right. Yeah,
opposite.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I
He
think
said the
that's-
exact opposite.
No, and I had the conversation with him after the last board meeting. This very conversation.
I don't know if that's true.
It's something close to me, so it mattered. And he said, "I don't know where this focus comes from. I don't know where the press comes from. It's wrong." And feel free to quote me on that when you speak to him.
I'm not planning to speak to him,
Anyone,
but
anyone
I
who
think,
suggests that the problem is the special education budget.
I
It's
think
not
it-
that
no, it's not a problem.
it's not a problem. It's a lot of money.
No, it's a
And so
problem when you
asking-
suggest it's going to destroy the budget.
The school budget will.
No, it's
Destroy
not.
No, according to our own chairman of Board of Finance.
I don't
it's
think he's
not
right.
going to.
Are you saying, Ed, that the special ed budget is gonna cause everything to apply, or the whole education budget is gonna cause?
if-
increase?
I'm saying that. I'm saying that for the amount of money that we're spending on special ed, it's a perfectly legitimate question to ask because we ask questions about a $5,000 line item.
Yeah.
the whole budget process involves a lot of discussion about relatively trivial amounts of money. So talking about something that is millions and millions of dollars is not inappropriate.
No one disagrees with you. The point is, if you start seeking a breakdown of to what schools and disabilities, now you're getting way too close to the problem identifying children.
I
I don't care
respectfully
what their disabilities
disagree.
are.
I don't believe that is the case, but I'm not a lawyer. But the
Private
fact that they
business.
gave it to us last year, and the fact that other schools do it, it's hard for me to believe that would be illegal. Maybe.
I'm not talking about illegal. I don't think we're talking
Well,
about
that's what we
illegal.
are talking about.
No,
That's
we're
why
talking
I
about
don't.
whether it's useful information for you or any of us to have, whether it's a potential invasion of the privacy of those individuals, where you're potentially creating a situation where you're able to identify a specific student, and God forbid, people start targeting specific students.
So
I
it's-
think
I-
that's what's in people's minds.
But I think so you mentioned three things there. The part about identifying the kids or their privacy or potentially issues of illegality. The first one, which
I didn't say a word about illegality. I mentioned about whether it's
but it's illegal. That's the part that's illegal, right? This whole thing with FERPA and keeping your information private. If you're violating it, that's the illegal part.
Right.
So if you're not violating it, it's not illegal.
I think, Curtis, what
I'm not saying a word about
what I'm
legality.
hearing you say, Curtis, is that if we start asking for the number of kids are outplaced, you think it's going to spiral out of control. I completely disagree with
I
that
didn't-
statement. That's how
I
it's,
didn't
that's
make
how
that
I'm
statement.
hearing it.
I said, if you want the number of students who are outplaced, nobody can object to that. But I'm hearing that there's questions for a lot more detail, and maybe other schools do it, and maybe we did in the past.
I'm asking-
That's irrelevant to me.
Okay, but the whole point of what we do here is, I mean, no offense to anyone who put questions on here, but there's a lot of questions on here that are irrelevant to me. But the point is, it's all of our questions put into a document. So it may be something that you don't particularly care about, which is fine, but if I care about it, it's a legitimate question to ask. I
That-
think, unless we're gonna
that
start
doesn't-
voting on,
Well, let's just agree that that doesn't follow. Just because one of us wants to ask it doesn't mean it's a legitimate question for this
But it is
body,
how-
this consultative body, to be demanding of the Board of Ed.
okay, well, if that's the case, that's not how, I mean, since I've been on the committee, that's not how it's worked. It's always been, everybody throws in their questions, sometimes they get sort of massaged, but at the end of the day, the person who's accumulating the questions puts them all out there. We do not vote on whether to submit questions or not.
But we do sometimes, as we pointed out in the statement that I made, that there was disagreement. Like, for
Yep.
example, the athletic, we put down that this wasn't exactly the majority opinion, that this was a good question. We put this right in the report, that there have been questions that we've debated and not included. And then, in fact, that's why when Peter, you sent me some questions, on an email, and I kind of said, well, I'll put in some, but other people's questions were subject to the debate, and you can kind of go in back door and say, okay, here's 10 more questions, because other people didn't get to see them, and say maybe some made the cut and some didn't. So we do sort of debate what we think of the questions, and in this case, it sounds like there's some agreement that getting a total number of outplaced students would be okay, but once details start being requested, such as where do they go, what's wrong, that's
To be clear, and I could be the only voice, I'd like to see what we had last year.
okay.
I mean, and if we can't see what we had last year, I have a hard time accepting someone who's not a lawyer saying we can't do this.
Well, they're considering it, says. But
Yeah.
I'd like to see what we had last year too.
But
I
I
think-
I would just like to quickly add in terms of why I want to see that number. When every school district does this, including us, you talk about your price per student or the cost per student,
Yes.
whatever. And that's based on your total budget divided by your enrollment number.
Yeah.
Well, they're not giving me a true enrollment number because our taxpayer dollars are paying that either all or part of that tuition, and I'm not fighting that. But then I want to know a true enrollment number
Yeah.
that goes with our budget.
I think everyone agrees that that's reasonable.
That's all I'm asking for.
That's what she's
That's all
asking
I'm
for.
asking
But I think some folks want a little more detail. And we can ask the question. If there's a reason we can't have the information, they're gonna tell us. I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't have access to this information ourselves. So certainly it doesn't hurt to ask. And, if there is a reason FERPA or otherwise why we can't have it, they're gonna say so. And there's a new superintendent here now, maybe he perceives it differently. So, I think we could say, we'd like to see that number that they said they're considering and more detail similar to last year, if it's okay with them. Would that work out? Would that be all right?
We can try. You know, one of the problems with going after numbers is that different schools cost much different.
Oh, no, I understand that. No, I understand that.
And so we're.
No, I
we're
totally,
paying
I
for
totally get that. It all depends on the IEP. I totally
Psychiatric.
understand that.
Versus
Yeah.
something else, you're paying a lot of different money.
No, I know.
Okay, so that was the question on outplaced students. Anything else that anybody would like to add there or strongly disagree? Okay, I know that the first question about the strategic plan, consider what the district will look like 5 years from now, that was one of the bullet points at the end. And I think they tried to answer it in terms of saying, see the 5-year forecast, but I wonder if the question really meant, what programs do you think we'll have as opposed to how much is something that, what did you mean when you asked the question?
Well, I want to go back to what Ed said regarding the process. I think getting these questions, discussing them here is helpful. I don't want to sort of massage the same question again. If we want to add new information, ask for new, we should add. But I would love to go through this document with the people who wrote it. That
Okay,
means therefore
yes.
the process where and when we sit down, said, you know, I disagree, or I think, you know, and I'm happy to discuss it with them. You know, yes, you're right. Maybe what I meant by it, and I can go through it here, what I meant by it, and how I think we should look at budgets. But I think it's easier if we all discuss it with the people who actually chosen the budget.
I think we are gonna do that, but I guess the reason
don't
for
think so.
tonight's, huh?
No,
I
it's the
don't
way
think
like
we are
this,
gonna
once,
discuss
once the budget goes from the administration to the
Right.
board, then they come back and we talk.
And we did it last year.
Yes,
It was,
we did
I
it
thought it was
last
helpful.
year.
I understand they didn't answer everything, but I thought
Yeah, I
they
agree,
did.
yeah.
But I think it's a reasonable thing to give them a little bit of heads up as to whether we're happy with these answers or whether we want some more information, because that way they can come to this dialogue prepared as opposed to coming to the meeting and then finding out, you know, half the things we ask about they don't know the answer to. So, that was the reason for getting together after we get this questionnaire. We got the
No, and
answers.
I agree that they have to receive them beforehand.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
Totally.
some things like the technology point,
Right,
which I mean, the way I would characterize it, like, good points were raised by this committee, and they basically kind of didn't answer. Now, in fairness, it's like there's maybe not an easy answer, and maybe it's a matter of like maybe it's perfectly reasonable, sort of, yeah, we hear you, and there's a new superintendent, and he's got to kind of figure this stuff out.
Mhm.
So it's a non-answer, but I can't really say, well, what are they supposed to say? Yes, it's exactly the right plan, or no, it's not the right plan, and here's my new one. Like, I think we have to expect there's going to be a certain amount of time. So I don't know if on some of these things, like, we've kind of done what we really can do, and it's more about like, okay, well, it'd be great to have a date as to when you're going to have figured out if this is the right thing to do or not.
okay.
Some of these answers would be board answers, but more, I would want to see the professionals answer them. Superintendent.
Well, is this prepared by the superintendent?
Yeah,
staff,
they-
or
yeah,
by the
yeah,
board?
they-
It's
Yeah.
by the superintendent's
Yeah.
office, not
Yeah.
the board of ed.
It's his budget right now. We
Yeah.
haven't voted
Yeah,
on it,
okay.
so, and he was the one who got in touch and said it's ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so relating to the questions.
I think athletics is almost in the same category. Like, I mean, I'd like to have this stuff settled, but he is new, and so it's something that's obviously a little bit controversial, so.
Although I would like to see, look, you give money, we all give money, write checks to these student activity funds. I think it's only fair. I mean, like every PTO does it every month.
Yeah, I would like to see
We
that.
let everybody know money in, we tell them exactly where it's going out and what's left. And it's a state law that they're audited each year, and it says here that indeed they are. And I know there are parents at the high school who want to know what's going on in those student activity funds. So it's not a budgetary issue necessarily, but it's something that they should probably disclose.
Sorry, wait, what was their answer for that one?
The
Yes,
athletic-
indeed.
And it is audited every
Oh,
year.
okay.
By Bloom something or
Yeah.
another.
William Shapiro.
Yeah.
I think that it was in the deep dive, the answer here is, we talked about the,
Yeah, so
particular
maybe
policy.
it's like in that particular, maybe if it would be worth to me that would be worth trying to formulate a follow-up, like, we wanna be involved, or would be, how are you planning on doing this deep dive, or?
Where does it
It's
say
been
deep dive?
So
it's
it's
4
second
years
page.
since
It's
they
the second
said they were
page, and the
gonna
answer
do
was
it.
yes,
Yes.
there's gonna be a deep dive, but like, okay, so.
Every year we waited for the big deep dive. It's never coming.
Who's in charge of it? Is it the
We thought it
superintendent?
was
Is it
gonna
the
happen in the
board? I mean, it was the
summer.
board
2
that was
years
gonna
ago,
do
yes.
the deep dive,
They said
right?
it was.
Yeah.
Maybe
It
they
happened, but
It happened, but it was very
they
shallow.
didn't go deep.
They didn't go very deep.
They didn't go deep enough.
Yeah, so what is a deep dive?
They went deep into clubs and councils. They didn't go deep into athletics.
Well, I think that was when the superintendent left.
Yeah, that was
And then-
around this last
so
year,
then
yeah.
Things were sort of in an upheaval.
So it would just seem to me that if we as a committee have a view on what this should be, this would be a time to express it, and I'm not
Okay.
offering an opinion, but like, we should try to formulate one like that,
Okay,
cause it's something that we spend a lot of time talking about.
we definitely do. So does anybody have an idea, of maybe like, just wanna throw out, how do you think the deep dive should go? Should it be like a strategy set? I mean, is there something that you have in mind? for what this-
I think like he's getting parents involved on other things.
Mhm.
I think if he's gonna really do this correctly, it shouldn't just be Board of Ed members. I think he needs to reach out to members of the high school community who
Maybe
have a real stake in it and
a
be part of
committee
it,
of
like a
some-
committee of
yeah.
sorts, like he's doing
Yeah, we did.
with his other strategy thing.
I think that's a good idea too, and then you could have like a couple of RTM people, a couple
Yeah.
of Board of Ed people, some,
Similar to what he's doing with the strategic
Right,
plan.
exactly.
Say
Yeah.
focus.
Exactly, like people, stakeholders.
and then at least like, for those of us who don't like what the answer is, you'll have a, okay, but we had a committee and we heard all this stuff and this is what
Yeah.
we came up
Exactly.
with.
And it's analyzed from different points of view,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to
Yeah,
just
yeah,
having the board of ed
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
admin.
And if they're gonna do it all to like they did last time where they did clubs and councils and athletics, you get
Yeah.
clubs and like you get like
Yeah.
the non-athlete parent in there too.
Yeah.
Okay,
That'd be all right.
so that's an idea. And what about, does that take care of athletics, or do you wanna talk more about the student activity funds?
I just you know can make the comment that they should really make that information public. I don't know, maybe every 6 months or every year once they do the audit.
Yeah.
Well,
because
where are
I
the
can-
results of this audit?
Yeah.
Make the audit public?
I mean, I just think it's
At
interesting that
least-
when you talk to, see what you think next year, when you talk to some captains' parents, they don't know what's in there.
And you can't get an answer. And the numbers never match up, ever.
Who sits on that account?
There's a bursar.
There's a burst at the high school.
The high school bursar?
Yeah.
She watches all of it.
Interesting.
So athletics, let's see, I think they did answer the question about the screening and training, and they said there was a policy link, but they did not give me the link.
The links weren't working.
The
right?
links were not
Yeah, he
working,
said that.
but if you go on the Board of Ed's website and you go to their policy manual and look for this, you can find it yourself. But I know he said the link didn't work, there was a problem with the
Can
link.
I just say one thing and go
Right.
back to these sports accounts? You know, parents have no choice but to put this school activity money into the school bursar's office. And you know, you're collecting thousands of dollars sometimes for a team. If you went to the Chase Bank and you deposited $4,000 and you wrote checks against it and you took money out, you can get a statement. And if bills come in, you can get a statement. You can't get that at Darien High School. You have to ask the athletic director, and then he has to ask the bursar. But first he has to check with the coach for you to get it. So you're the mother or the captain's parent, and you put the money in, and you're the one who is authorizing the bills and buying things for the team.
Right.
You can't get a statement balance.
Do you know if anyone's ever tried to do like a shadow accounting? Like if you were the captain's mom?
Yeah, of
And
course.
you could basically keep track of all the money going in and out.
Everybody does that,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's where
Nothing
there's.
matches up.
And then nothing matches up in a lot of cases. And then what happens is you finish being the captain, you hand it over, and that's it. And then next year, summer comes, and now there's a rule, I think it's $1,500 or
It's
$1,000
Yeah.
can only be left in the account. So people are madly trying to
Spend it, yeah.
spend it, which
Or-
they should be able
or-
to carry it over.
They keep the cash from the car wash and hand that over to next year's captain parent, like here's your little slush fund.
Oh my goodness, okay. And that's not audited. I suppose the auditor never sees that, right?
Well, you can't do an audit unless you have the
Right.
actual expenses. They don't have that. So I don't know.
Well,
But
okay.
if people should be allowed to go to the Chase Bank so you could get answers, or Citibank, or whatever, and you could run it properly.
But isn't the purpose for the $1,000 maximum balance so that this year's students aren't paying for next year's students' activities?
The
It sounds
transfer.
reasonable, yeah.
Well, if they're seniors and they put all their money in and they've worked the car wash and done the fundraising and they spend $2,000 on a tent for next year, that they did exactly what they did. They just paid for the tent for the students going ahead. I think if you raise the money and they did it as a team, it's team money. And I don't see any harm in it being moved forward and the next year people deciding what to do. Maybe they don't have to raise as much because they have so much money. Or maybe it'll be less money for the parents that they have to put in. Instead of it being a $150 fee, maybe it's $75 this year because the money was carried over. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, because I can imagine other parents, let's say you had $5,000 at the end of the school year, parents think, why did I put so much in?
Yeah, why don't
Yeah,
they
it
give
wasn't
it back?
spent.
Or why don't they ever
Well,
give it
yeah,
back?
so
What's-
but you don't know. Like that's the thing. Like I have no idea if $5,000 is left over and
Well,
if it's been swept out.
Usually
right?
your person who's in charge should, the captain's mom who's in charge should know exactly how much there is. And then she will, or he will, purchase something or do something with the money, and usually it's decided with the coach. The coach says what he needs and then they buy it.
And then they buy ice time.
Yeah,
So
whatever
that-
they need.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think what you're saying is you want more transparency with the statements from the bursar, right?
Yeah, well, someone needs to look at the whole,
I assume, is
Policy.
this just because, is this the policy issue, or this is the limitations of the system that the school has?
I think it's both. But I know that they work on it because they changed it in the time that I was there. They're used to, the $1,000 thing is new. It's relatively like 2 or 3 years old.
Isn't that the sweep?
Yeah.
Isn't that the
Yeah.
proposal that the sweep happened and then?
Yeah, they just take the money. So if you have $3,000, they take 2 and leave you with 1.
So then the question is, where did that money go?
Well, I
How
thought
is
the
it being
idea was
used?
I
Is
thought
it
the-
available for who?
Is it available for like a team that doesn't have successful fundraising or something?
I don't know.
I thought that was the
I
point of it,
don't
to
know.
make it more
That's the
equal.
question because we don't get an answer.
But it doesn't matter to me. It's not anybody else's money, but the people who
Well,
raise
that's
it.
true.
So it's a
that's a whole
disincentive
other
to raise
issue.
too much from parents, right?
Yeah,
If you're gonna
Or-
ask us for $200, you better spend the money or we're gonna lose
it's
it.
really the incentive to spend, like, let's go buy these.
Shouldn't go to another team.
Well, I guess
that
that's what
didn't
you're
pay their
saying.
bills.
Yeah, I agree, so it's gotta be
Yeah.
managed a little tighter, right?
So we need information from the.
Well, the parents do. We don't really need it, but it's just,
I just think it's
People
fair.
complain about it like
Transparency is fair.
crazy.
If I'm writing a check, I want to know exactly where that money went.
Yeah. But I think Lucy's point is good in that it's not that this committee wants the answer,
Right.
it's that the
Yeah.
parents should have the answers.
Right,
Okay. Any more about this? I think, did you understand that a lot of the questions, or some of the questions on security
Yes.
have to be answered in executive session, and we will not be getting those answers, but there are ways of communicating to the parents. How about the part about the Chromebooks and whether they're being used?
Well, that's tomorrow night's meeting.
That's tomorrow night's meeting.
It's all about tech.
Chromebooks
Yeah,
or
big
iPads?
technology, it's the big-
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that's true. So then you think these answers will be,
I think the
coming to us
technology
tomorrow?
things, because they kept pushing that out. And they kept saying that to the Board of Ed members as well.
And
Okay.
several answers, it says February 11th.
Yes, okay. How about the legal expenses? I was gonna ask, I see they listed out the partner's fees here. Do they ever use somebody who's not a partner? I mean,
Yeah, that leaves the specialists, that's in response to that question. Explain legal expenses. I guess it does on one hand, but
You wanna see trends in cases,
how many
you wanna see.
hours, how many hours?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what are legal expenses?
Exactly.
Describe them for what issues are they
We
being
have
used?
that.
Yeah.
It's in one of the board questions to the administration, the prior Q&A, not for us, but for the board and the administration.
Okay, so
Okay, so
then we
that's
should,
these lines, I guess.
so we should have known that before we asked that question.
well, it's possible that we asked the question before they did.
Before they ran it.
Yeah. Okay, how about the question about the department chairs, the student-facing time? They seem to have answered that the chairs do spend time in classrooms. Are you happy with that?
No, I agree.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Peter? Okay, and what about the, information about the psychologist? There's going to be a presentation, so we will get that information.
What question is that?
The one about, how do you measure the impact of the psychologists? And the answer is that in the spring of 2020, coming up, there will be a presentation on the psychologists. Okay?
Is that on the sheet?
Not on this one.
It's on the last page,
Maybe I'm missing a page.
the page that, it's, we did skip around a little bit. Okay, the bus contract is coming up in 2023, that's a question about food service. I'm not sure that we got
It's not there.
an answer that was helpful.
I was talking
Why
to
did-
the food service people, they're kind of dismayed.
You're talking to them? Okay.
I was talking to Don.
Why did we ask that
Okay.
question?
Well, I remember asking that, I wasn't sure if it's part of the budget or if it's just for information. Is it float, is it our employees, is it not?
Well, that's the
How do
whole
we-
issue.
How do
Not
we,
anymore.
not
Tell us.
anymore?
Not anymore.
So how do we keep them on it? Is there some quality measures, you know, what's,
They are,
and all
they
that?
have hired a vendor to come in,
Oh, they have?
yes,
Oh, so you mean like a,
something, yeah.
McDonald's or something.
Catering service.
I did not get the details, we didn't have time, we were at another event.
So are there not employees that work in the kitchen then, now?
Now there are,
Yeah.
and it's changing.
okay, so we
So
should
that
ask,
there won't be.
They won't be the same, it won't be the same.
Do you know why they made that decision?
No, I really don't.
They went to a contractor? My
That's
guess,
what they're saying.
my guess is it's a different, I mean, I'm assuming like different benefits, it should be, I'm guessing it's because it's cheaper.
Yes.
How do they, that
They're
those
not
people that are coming to
FTEs.
work
I
in
know,
their
that's
school?
my- that
Well,
would be
there's
my
like a lot of
question,
companies
yeah.
that do that stuff like
I know.
professionally.
Yeah, there
I
are.
mean,
The
hospitals.
cafeteria staff I always thought was awesome.
Has it been discussed anywhere, Carolyn? I know you always,
No, but
No,
so are they
it's
getting
not.
rid of all those people?
I don't know if they're getting rid of them or if they're under a different contract.
yeah, maybe
Something's changing.
we should
I
ask
don't
more
have the
about this.
detail.
It seems like that would have been something that we would have heard about, I don't know.
It seems like it.
Would seem like it would make the paper.
Well, it hasn't occurred yet.
Okay.
They haven't gone out, you know, they
But
still
the
have
board
the
would have to
lady.
approve that, I think, right? To give a contract like that?
Yeah, I think that would be.
I don't
Yeah.
know the nature of it. I do not know
I mean, we
the date
have-
of it.
remember
I
the
don't
debate
know
on-
when it
yeah,
starts.
Okay, so maybe it actually hasn't, maybe, because like, remember we had that whole discussion about just having centralized photocopying?
Yeah, yeah, so, I mean, I don't know.
Good point.
I mean, maybe
We need breakfast.
we did ask, hello, Liza, thanks for coming.
Thanks.
We did talk about, whether there's a need for more personnel, and it says because of the new cafeteria, and they did answer that there is no need for more personnel, so
Well, let's wait,
maybe we'll just see, okay.
Ask about food and food services and see what anybody
The
says.
food services neatly sounds like they're not FTEs. We're always
I don't believe
concerned
that they
about.
are. No, they're not the same.
They're not, they've never been the same?
I don't believe they are.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't believe they take a pension like I do. I don't think so.
Or entitled
don't know.
entitled to a pension? I mean, they're just
Do
not,
not know.
okay.
Is the question. I know there's a change coming.
That's why I wondered why we raised the question, what brought the question on?
yeah, because I wasn't sure, and I have to think about it's been a month or so,
Yeah,
whether.
because there's like a thing in the
There's
back.
there's a page on it, and
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it flows through the numbers in budget that we should discuss, or if it's just for information as a background to understand how it works.
Very
And-
topic.
And if it's, well, you know, what RC is it, because I'm sure it was one of these objects. Just wanted to understand more the whole topic, and, you know, if it brings an idea that there may be some change, it's one of those questions that's worth bringing when we see them face to face.
Yes, I think so, because I think it's it's a little bit complicated, and especially if there's a change on the horizon, it might be better that they talk to us later
But
on.
it
if-
isn't that we understood it before the change was coming.
No, no, we didn't understand that either, but I think
Right.
if, it would be easier to discuss at a later date. I don't say that. We also talked about the finance department. I know they seem to have covered some of their costs for new people in a restructuring. But he does say on this last page, they do not do day-to-day activities at Darien High or Middlesex. They don't have the capacity to do the work. So I was wondering if we should ask whether they are looking to hire somebody so they do have that capacity.
Well,
To
No, this
provide
is,
that kind of
this is
work.
the whole activity.
Pardon me?
This is the whole activity accounts. The
Yes,
question is about the activity accounts, and then there's the bursar,
Right.
and does DHS, and the secretary does it in MMS.
And I think if they were looking to hire, then they would have it, put it in the budget.
well, they did do some restructuring. I mean, if you read his statement on RC20, they kind of move people around a little bit. And I think an account,
Where we are.
What is
it's
page?
the last
It
page.
is in the last
The
page.
second,
Yeah.
third one
Yeah.
down.
This is our last page.
Do you have different-
No, you have here.
Yeah.
This is the question.
This one.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess I was
Yeah, we're
wondering,
missing that page, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, so-
Right?
okay.
it says they don't have the capacity to do this work. And I assume this work is the day-to-day activities at the high school and middle school. And I guess I was wondering, would they like to be doing it, or would it be better if they?
So
Yeah,
last
maybe
year-
who does the bursar actually, it almost like the bursar, I would have thought the bursar was in the finance department.
She works for the principal.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
actually the third line item in the high school budget.
But not working, so this is a little bit of, we don't do this, and this person that is in charge of the bookkeeping doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
So talk
Yeah,
to the
so the
bursar.
high school person takes care of
Yeah,
that.
the high
Yeah.
school
The middle
she
school
sits
person.
right outside of
Yeah.
Alan's office.
But I mean, could we ask, would you like to have the capacity to do this? I mean, is that a reasonable thing to ask? Would it-
I mean, I think they have to oversee it
I think you're gonna
at some
create a
point.
bursar.
Well, I think the
somebody-
principal oversees
I mean,
it.
that's part of it too,
You're right.
right?
So then the question is, who oversees it? Like, I
But I
guess that's
think
the
it's a good
question, who
question.
I
oversees
think
it?
there's no one, we should be able
You can
to do
always
a
say
Chase
no.
Bank.
Okay, so I think we've asked the questions on the last page, we've asked some other ones on the first page. I think there was one, I mean, what about you all? Do you have some other things you'd like to have more information about?
So by the way, the legal fees are on the 121 Q&A on the first page.
Read them to us, would you?
Oh, thank you.
The detail. Last year there were $248,000 FOIA, and then this year so far $116,000.
In full requests?
No, the whole thing.
Okay.
Last year FOIA was $88,000.
Okay.
This year so far is $3,800. Negotiating contracts was last year $10,000. This year is $45,000.
What was that?
Negotiations
Oh, the
and
contract.
Because that we just,
Personnel issues were $45,000 last year, so far this year 5. General legal inquiries 72 last year, this year 60. Policies pretty much in line. Student discipline last year was $8,600, this year $600.
That's because they haven't gotten the bill yet for the
Yeah,
cheese.
no liability claim, no expulsion, no parent hearing so far. So that's-
So there's no lawsuits pending against the school district according to that?
The lawsuit
that
may
was
be
written.
funded by insurance? I mean, we have insurance, I would assume that
So
the
maybe,
karma,
insurance company picks
is
up
that,
that.
no, they come in first, right?
I was gonna say that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too, for a district our size, that
Yeah.
seems kind of reasonable.
It's, yeah, I think they benefit. Okay, how about other questions, comments? I think we got the answer about Malone and McBroom. There will be an update. The Fitch lease, that really is true, that it's gonna go up by 7% or 5%. Retired teachers were grandfathered into the health plan, and I guess the answer here on page 2.
It changed for everybody in last winter, middle of last winter.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it changed like a long time ago when a bunch of teachers retired and somebody said, well, the reason was because they were no longer gonna pay for their health plan.
That was part of it.
That was, but I guess what I was wondering is this, when they say they had a difficult experience and that was the reason for the increase in costs, is it possible that it's the retired folks who are
Well,
producing the difficult experience?
no, because they're pretty well covered. And then Social Security eventually came in for some of us.
But I mean, if they had a serious illness, would that be part of the experience that insurance company is saying has caused the prices to go up?
Could be, because older people have more illness
Well, it
than
could
young
be, but,
people.
yeah.
And I guess if
Not
there's,
specific.
if there's only 14 people left, then, you know, I guess that's not a cost that will continue to go up.
No, it won't.
Because they won't let anybody else in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's, anyway, okay. This says the teacher contributions have not increased, because somebody had listed that as a question. how had their benefits changed? So-
But that
I
wasn't
feel like their
consistent.
percentage is the same.
Okay,
No, isn't that 21%?
Yeah, they're still 21%,
Right.
but obviously if your
But if it
insurance
went
goes up,
up,
doesn't your number, your
They're
actual.
still 21%, but if my base went from 10 to 15.
right,
Right,
then
you're
it's more,
still-
out
you're
of pocket
talking
is
more.
higher, is more.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And my probably raise did not equate to the increase
No.
in
Right.
the
No.
expense.
But I
Right.
guess,
Therefore, I am paying more.
correct.
Right?
Yes.
But if you're the town taxpayer, that's good news. You know, because at the end, they're trying, when we
Right.
charge about the
Yeah.
contract, they're saying, look what we, look how well it served the taxpayer as well as the teachers, so.
It's relatively good news as long as I can find good teachers.
Right,
that are
I
willing to
know.
Put up with that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's not good news.
That's right.
Is the new health plan final? They've come to an agreement?
I
I
don't
thought it
know.
was
I don't
part of the
think so.
contract.
They were
huh?
gonna go.
No, I think
No.
they're looking
No.
for as their
Yeah.
contribution of 21% is final, but I think they're still shopping
still
around
shopping.
and
They're
have
looking
half
for
Who
plan.
is the provider?
Like
Yeah,
a better
yeah.
provider, yeah.
That's why I'm just curious about this number. I keep asking about this number because if it's not settled, we don't actually know what the health costs are.
That's true. But they seem to be positive about, they had worked with a consultant and they had
Yeah.
something in mind that it certainly better than the 34%
Exactly.
that they mentioned.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions?
Can I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
This has been a very unusual budget season, I feel.
All right.
And when I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, they're voting on the budget tomorrow.
I know, I'm like,
And
what?
I'm like, huh, I don't know where any of them stand on something. Like, I feel like usually by the time we get to this point, you kind of know. And I don't think I know. Because if anything, I think it might end up being higher.
Yeah, it seems
Some of the comments
to
at
me
the
like
Board
it's
of
gonna be
Ed
higher.
The things that he was gonna take out,
that they want to put back in.
and they talked about putting back in, so, and then some of the people who came to the public hearing
Yeah.
seem to want them put back in, so.
When was the public hearing?
Last
The
week.
day that, the same day as the last Tuesday?
Last Tuesday.
Same
Oh,
day as
right.
the cheating thing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they started out with the student comments and all that. Any other comments or
Just
something?
following up on that question I asked that someone had sent to me about the, a bus for the Norotan Fitch area.
Okay,
So
So there's an answer here. What do you follow up to what?
just really hoping and praying it goes through. Because it's a dangerous route for the kids to walk.
Oh, yeah.
That's my route.
Look, for what is, I raised this in my email, like I'm not saying it's not dangerous, but I don't see how a bus is gonna make it not dangerous. Unless we tell kids they're not allowed to walk.
Didn't they
So,
add
to
2
me-
buses?
I'm not sure, but like
in
I
the
just,
evening?
I don't know that the bus solves the problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't the bus
It doesn't
them
get
off the
them to
street?
school.
If they choose to
Right.
take it,
Right.
Why would they not?
I'm
Well,
not
they
sure why
have
they
to.
wouldn't, but there are people that choose not to take the bus now. Either they get their parents to drive them, they drive themselves. I'm just saying, like, to me, if the issue is the road is unsafe, we need to figure out, or the crossing is unsafe, we need to make the crossing safe, or else prohibit kids from crossing. Like, in other words, offering a bus that goes back and forth where kids are still doing the dangerous crossing hasn't solved the problem of the dangerous crossing.
We need to solve it for the commuters too.
Correct, but
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
can't
saying
get-
it's not.
they can't get
I'm not saying it's an
actually think
RTM
it's
issue.
I think it's a town problem.
I
I
It
do
is
too.
sidewalks.
I do too. It's a town
On
issue.
both sides, not like because I'm a runner and you run along on the sidewalk, and then the sidewalk ends, and you got to
and
cross
then
over and
there's
go
a
over the
tree.
sidewalk
And
again.
the problem we have is to get the kids to school and back.
But
and,
I'm
and the bus solves that, right?
It only solves it if they're required to take it. And I guess what I'm saying is, so if we have a bus and it's running back and forth, and half the kids take it and the other half do not.
That does
You
not
haven't?
happen.
I'm
first of
I'm
all,
not
that-
sure,
how
but
is how is that neighborhood different from anywhere else in town, where parents decide to drive their kids to school whether there's a bus route or not? It's not different from any other neighborhood.
Well,
It's
it's
the
the
same
2
issue
mile,
everywhere.
these folks
Yeah,
are,
it's-
they don't quite hit the 2 mile.
It's
Situation.
really dangerous.
Yes,
But
which
it's
is
been
why I think it's
dangerous.
completely
It's been
reasonable to
dangerous
request a
for.
bus.
I'm not sure what happened from like.
Since I walked it.
We
Yeah,
used
so I'm
to
not
walk a
Changing bus
different
policy,
way.
isn't it? The issue, changing
No,
bus
but the bus
policy.
policy didn't change, did it?
Yes,
It
it
did?
did.
Yeah.
It's always been 2 miles.
There's always been 2
It's
miles.
always been
Mhm.
2 miles,
But-
Yeah.
but everyone knew a way around it.
Yeah.
They could go back.
I didn't know where,
They
because my
started
kids were.
reinforcing it, let's put it that
So
way.
I think what's been
Yes.
happening, I think
Well, the
it's
morning
My
they
kid
have
made
been
it through
the
high
same.
school and
Yes.
there was no way around it.
Yeah.
Like, there was no bus that came. It was
Yeah.
under 2 miles, but from where we live, there's no high school bus.
Where you live, oh, and,
Yeah.
okay. But that's more than 2 miles away?
No, it's under 2 miles.
Oh, it's under
like-
2 miles.
It's 1.8 miles. Like, it's still, you don't
So,
want your kid
and what's
walking
happening
on
is kids are
College
getting
Ridge.
kicked off because kids
Yeah.
find a way around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So they've been getting onto buses that are near their house.
Okay.
We've been doing that
And they're
for
getting
20
kicked
years.
off because, as you know,
Right.
like the buses in the morning tend to be empty because
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
is being
Yeah.
driven to school. Because quite frankly, the buses don't get there on time if you need to see a teacher.
Yeah.
But a lot of kids take the bus home, and those buses are full, and so these kids who don't belong on it were get that. So that's
Got
where it
it.
started. These
Okay.
kids were getting kicked off.
My objection was just to, like, if the problem is the intersection, I don't see the bus as changing it unless you force people to take the bus. And if you're still going to allow children or their parents to exercise free will and walk,
Of course.
then you haven't solved the problem. And the problem is the intersection. It's not the 2 miles. It's the intersection.
I think no one should get kicked off the damn bus.
I agree.
I agree with you on that too.
Period.
Right?
It is
It's
absurd.
assumption of risk if you walk
And
and
they're
there's a
not,
bus
and they're
offer.
never all full
Right.
where they can't fit
What did
one
you say,
more
Liza?
kid.
I disagree about it, you know, the bus doesn't solve the problem, because if you choose to walk, even though the district is providing you a bus, you're assuming the risk
Right.
walking, that you're undertaking a dangerous
Right.
walk. Whereas the district is now, has
Denying.
no liability in that event because they're providing a safe bus.
I think that's a
So-
legal question that I mean, I'm not gonna argue with you on, because I don't know if you're assuming, who's assuming the liability, but
The person walking is assuming the liability.
I
Okay.
would like to
As
suggest
a
that the
non-lawyer-
school, that the Board of Ed look into this.
I think they are.
I think
They are. They are.
They
They've been
need-
assessed.
they need-
bus, we should
But is this, I mean, the question for me was, does our
Because it
committee have a view on this?
No, we didn't, this isn't on the agenda, so we really can't, go too far into this. I can tell you that, District Two, which is where a lot of people involved in this live, they're having a meeting tomorrow about it. And I believe the, Public Health and Safety Committee also discussed it. So there are discussions happening on the RTM. It was not put on the agenda for this meeting, so I don't think we can delve too much into it, but we can certainly express opinions individually or in another
I mean,
forum about.
they're voting the budget tomorrow, right?
Correct, but I don't know if it's exclusively next year. I mean, might they do
It's
something
they
about
want
it this
the
year?
bus now, and
Yeah,
the
it's
state
not-
law
yeah.
is such that the superintendent can add a bus
Yeah.
at
Yes.
this point in the school year
Yeah.
if he deems it's necessary.
Which I think
It's
was
It's
Like
here,
right
it's-
here.
It's where I
The
live.
Fitch Avenue, the,
Claire's the head of Christmas.
under 95.
but then I think District Four is on the other side,
Yeah.
of
Right.
I-95, so
Right.
I don't know if they met or talked about it.
So no, it's District 2, Public Health and Safety are going tomorrow too.
Tomorrow night. Yeah.
Tomorrow night is District Two, and
But Public Health and Safety was invited again.
they are, the
Yes.
chairman is
Yes.
gonna come.
That-
But, and also, someone said that the police are doing a study.
Yes.
And I did talk to them, and the gentleman that I talked to or emailed with said they're looking at a crossing guard at West Avenue and Norotan at that intersection, which is up
Good
there.
idea.
And they're looking into the viability of that, so that's what they're doing. So there are things being done. Okay, that, just an announcement. Okay, anything else about the budget, which is here, that we might wanna ask a question that we hadn't thought of before, or a statement of any kind? You can email me, but I do try to keep a little bit of, a limit on it, because as you see, we had a big discussion about some things that were pros and cons. And if you just email me, then that question isn't subject to the same scrutiny that the other questions have been. So if you have any, we can certainly meet again if you want, not this week or next week, but, if there are things that come up that you think are relevant for
Can I
us.
just ask,
Yeah.
in terms of the budget,
Mhm.
it's this whole open gov thing.
Oh, okay.
I know the Board of Finance has been pushing it. I mean, I've looked into it. I only found one school district that used it. I guess
Yeah.
CVSP has found 3 or 4. I've looked at OpenGov on the town website, and I'm not sure what value it adds when there is a budget subcommittee meeting every month talking about transfers and providing pretty little charts for everybody to see. And at a cost of either $60,000 to $130,000 for a software program that doesn't benefit the student population in any form, shape, or way. in a budget season where we're struggling to find cuts, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't seem like it's a logical add, quite
Right,
frankly.
it doesn't.
I think the comment that I would, just to sort of, I think it's a well-said point, but for all the time that it has come up, why doesn't the Board of Ed use OpenGov? Like, I think they could take your, I mean, if there's an answer, that should be communicated. Because I think like one of the things that, I mean, I've heard the criticism, why isn't the school using it? And I think the board's answer has always been, we'll consider it.
And he looked into it this time.
But-
He got this superintendent did
Okay.
it.
Okay, so I mean,
And has he decided it's too expensive?
okay,
The finance guy looked in, apparently, he was the one who said it's
Okay.
only used in 2 other school districts or something. And then they did go through a cost of how much it would cost to put it all in, and I don't know if there's an ongoing cost. But it seemed like they were not, I think one of the board members did say something like he was gonna withdraw his
Okay.
enthusiasm for
Yeah.
it. So
Okay.
it doesn't sound like it's still out there.
I'm hoping it's not.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
in the
don't
cost
understand.
tomorrow, and the add or cut
What-
tomorrow list
yeah.
that they go through is in there, yeah.
Is
What
it in the
it
budget?
supposed to do? The open gov thing, what is it supposed to do?
They asked to add it at the last meeting.
they did ask to add it?
Mhm.
Jill did.
I think Mr. Zagrodsky thinks that it's gonna benefit his ability to review the budget or the financials on a more granular detail.
Yeah, I think it's
See,
more.
I
why-
have,
why
I
he's
have a
given him the
problem with
benefit of
that,
doubt
so
that he knows-
spending $130,000 so the Board of Finance can.
Cause they're not educators.
Have an easier job.
Yeah.
Neither
Teresa-
educators nor athletes.
Did you wanna say, do you think this committee should say something at the public comment about OpenGov?
I mean, I did say something in public comment at the end of that meeting a couple of weeks ago where the cost of it did come up,
Mhm.
and I know the CSP chairs brought it up. I don't know. I don't know if the whole committee agrees, so I don't know.
Well, what do you all think? Do you think it's something that you would like someone from the committee to get up and say something about, or do you?
I think my comment would be, if what Teresa said is right, I'd be skeptical about spending them. I mean, guess it's like, we've heard, you represented John's point, which may be very valid, and, you know, you represented the very good point. I'm just, so, boy, if that was what I had to go on, it would almost be tough to be, what's the right decision? So it would almost seem like if we were gonna spend that much money, we should have a bit of a,
There should be more conversation for
correct,
sure.
yeah, and that
And
would,
maybe they've already had it,
yeah,
but, and I've heard John say it a couple of times about OpenGov, so there has to be more to his reasoning than
agreed.
just wanting to see.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
Because
figured,
he wouldn't
Yeah.
spend that money lightly.
I agree, yeah.
but I figure they can figure it out and sort of let us know what the outcome is, sort of, you know, as a mutual statement. It's like the second year we're discussing this item, and they seem to be very against each other. I still don't understand why it's such
Well,
a big deal.
This is the first time I think that there was actually more than there was actually someone
Yeah.
looking into it, right? So now it's not just I've ignored your suggestion, now
Right.
I've looked at it
And have a view.
and I have a view.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the issue is, and in the question here, is because it says in RC 20 finance, should we include a line for OpenGov? And it says it's a software and would not be included in RC 20, which is finance. And it would be included in RC 15 under software that doesn't impact any kid in the school.
You're
Therefore-
looking at the questions that were answered from the Board of Ed. This isn't on our list.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the webpage if we don't see them. This is the first round that they did the big follow-up questions, the IRC.
Yeah, no.
And I find some of these questions, you
Almost
know,
that shape.
to really be like, hey, let's discuss it more than where it should be, you know?
So,
Yeah, so this was the first answer.
Right,
Would it be like
And then the
if they're
second
gonna
answer
spend the
from
money,
them was,
then we
it's
should be
too
asking
much
for
money.
we don't want it.
Yeah.
I guess we could say something like that. If you're seriously thinking of OpenGov, we would like to have a little more.
a little bit of an understanding of what it is.
Yeah.
What the
Right.
benefits.
And is
Does that
something
mean
going to
that-
get cut to make up for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And what is
ad.
an example of what's so good about it that we don't have now?
I cannot give you that. I don't know. Mr. Zagrodsky mentioned that.
OpenGov implies that it's
Yeah.
good just by its name, but
So would you like me to say that if you're thinking seriously of OpenGov?
It's a software company in Silicon Valley, by the way. Don't assume.
oh, of course it is.
It's a
Of
cute
course
little
it is.
name, I
What's that
think.
got to do with it?
Okay, so
So
just,
she's saying, don't think that, because the title sounds like it's good, OpenGov doesn't necessarily mean it was, that's all she's saying.
But they use that name that makes you
Yes, absolutely.
It's good
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah, of course
very
it
good
is.
marketing.
Okay, well, to get back to tomorrow evening, do you want me to say something at public comment about this, such as we are aware that you have learned more about OpenGov, and we would like, if you're thinking seriously of it, we'd like to know a little more about it, or do you want to not say anything? Or do you want to say something else?
I'd like to.
You say Jill added it last Tuesday? I thought she had caught it last Tuesday. I don't remember though.
Or was it 2 weeks ago?
I like what you-
can't remember.
You like
Because they went through the ad,
What's your-
the ad
what's
and
your
the
sense?
cost
A
list
little more
last
about it,
Tuesday
it's just
night.
gonna describe
And I thought
stuff.
they had
It doesn't answer
been
the
moved
question.
last Tuesday,
Would
but
you
I'm not
like-
sure.
No,
It's an
listen, that's your.
example of what.
I don't remember, I don't remember.
I have to go back and look.
I have to go back and look,
Of
but
what
if
it
that's what
does.
happened, I'll leave it to
Improvement
you.
on the
would
system.
have
I don't
to look
remember
again.
either.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember it was mentioned, but I don't remember if it mentioned like, let's remove it or let's keep it. I can't
But
recall.
Janet's question's good. What is it gonna do for us?
Yeah, okay, I'll put that question in too. Okay, so
It doesn't do anything
can
for
we
us.
just have a
Right,
sense
but,
of whether I should
You know,
say
for
something?
why they want it.
Yeah.
I would just
What's
like,
it gonna do with different than what we do now?
I will include that. So the idea would be to say, we appreciate the research that has been done about open.gov, and if you're gonna consider it seriously, we'd like to know, a little more about it, including an example of what it does to improve on what we have
Yeah,
at
it's what it
present.
does to.
But that would be a question to the Board of Ed, not the administration, I think, because it didn't sound like the administration is gung ho
Cares
about
for
it.
yeah.
Right.
But
But
it's
it's
board,
if.
yeah, but it's
just
board
if
members who
they're
really want
gonna-
it, right.
If they're not gonna
Right.
do it, it'll be a
Okay.
non.
Okay.
I'm not sure I appreciate the work that they've done already, because I don't know what that work is.
Well, they did list out how much it cost and what other school districts had it, you know, that kind of thing, which is more than just saying we're looking into it. So,
I think Rich Riddle said he had somebody from OpenGov came in and did a
yes, that's
presentation.
right, somebody came in and did a presentation to
Yeah,
That was marketing.
selling the stuff.
Yes. Let's get the information.
Well, he got the information because the Board of Finance has been pressing them for a long
Right.
time.
So they went beyond, we'll look into it.
Right, and they were into
Okay,
it.
all right. Is there anything else you all want to talk about or think about?
Okay, here it is,
What
the
is it?
answer, sorry.
Right,
At this time, the administration is not recommending OpenGov at 109,000 of the budget and transparency modules. Based on what we know about the program, the budgeting module within OpenGov is not different than the budgeting module for Munis and does not offer any added value or differentiation. If we wanted to explore the transparency module, Munis offer a similar module that we can explore. Currently, in addition, the business office does not have the capacity to implement these programs without detracting from other priorities.
There
okay.
you go.
That was the
Right, so
answer.
we will not ask
Pretty
this
good
question.
answer.
That's
We don't need to
answer.
do anything. They
The name
answered
is
it.
Munich.
Munis,
It's a-
M-U-N-I-S.
it's a software
Yeah.
program.
And you might, if you're gonna
I
comment,
remember I heard that.
No, I'm not.
refer, no, I was gonna say refer back to
Munis.
that. Say,
Well, I guess, we'll see. I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect to say anything after
Be a dialogue.
what
Yeah.
Carolina just read,
Good.
but yes, when we have our
Very
dialogue.
good, we should.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Do you think we should adjourn?
Yes.
Well, one thing I want to
Okay.
make sure that I understand, we have a new list or tightened list or follow-up list that's going to go to the Board of Ed, right? But what I think is that this is a fair package to be discussed. I just want to make sure that I understand the process. When we sit down head to head, this is a fair list to be discussed and asked about again, right? There's a bunch of questions that.
Yes,
So not only what you have on the follow-up, but
but
Let's
we
go
can
ahead,
revisit
Dave.
those,
Yeah.
yes, and if you
Okay.
have had any other thoughts
Yep.
or information, you can certainly bring that up.
Right.
Okay, but I don't think it's gonna be right away, you know, I
no,
think
no,
it's
it's
gonna
gonna be just
be
before the vote like last year, if I
probably
remember, right?
later, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Okay,
And things happen in between.
that's
right.
right,
That's
that's
right.
right.
This is the time to get our oar in the water.
Well, I think it was good to go over this, cause it gets stale after a while. All right, so can we have a motion to adjourn if there's no other business? Lucy and Ed, okay, thank you very much for coming out. It's 8:30.